Aitah for calling my sister uneducated. I would like to preface this by saying that this may be a bit lengthy, so I apologize in advance. I am a 23-year-old female grappling with a very complex family situation. I entered the foster care system at the age of 3 and was adopted at 6 by a family that has no relation to my biological family. I have maintained contact with my biological family since I was 17. They come from a disadvantaged, rural area where many of my siblings became parents as teenagers, and my oldest sister, who is 43, dropped out of high school without obtaining her general educational development certificate. In contrast, my adoptive family is highly educated. My adoptive mother is a college professor of biology. While I have a slightly strained relationship with them, we have been actively working to improve it. My adoptive family ensured that I received a quality education, and although I needed to obtain my general educational development certificate due to circumstances such as the pandemic, I have also participated in dual enrollment and advanced placement courses, focusing primarily on biology and United States history. Both of my families identify as Republicans, while I find myself as a small liberal presence amid them. Yesterday, my biological mother posted something on her Facebook regarding the Gulf of Mexico, or as it has been controversially renamed, the Gulf of America. I commented on her post, suggesting we have more pressing issues to address rather than the renaming of a body of water. My biological mother's husband then took it upon himself to label me as stupid. In doing so, he misused the words "you're" and "you're," prompting me to respond with a bit of sarcasm and point out his mistake. This sparked a response from my sister. Below is the entire conversation from the Facebook thread, starting with her initial comment directed at me after she corrected my biological mother's husband. Sister, how long do you think it took for this to come to fruition? I'm guessing it may have taken a few minutes out of Trump's day. He probably said he wanted to do this, had someone write it up and then signed it. Boom, done. This was just a side note amidst everything else he is trying to achieve. We had more important matters to attend to when the names of army bases were changed, and historic statues were demolished in the name of being more American. Yet I never heard you complain about that. Just stop being a keyboard warrior on your family's posts, and maybe you won't get your feelings hurt. Me, when we celebrate those who have harmed others, and the American people request changes to reflect ideals of unity, I am all for removing Confederate monuments that sought to detach themselves from the United States. We do not need to glorify individuals with such harmful legacies. I did not initiate a keyboard warrior attitude, as you have labeled me, but to each their own. I couldn't care less if someone calls me stupid, but it reflects poorly on the character you all choose to display, since I never resorted to name-calling. He started it, and I responded. Again, I maintain that if you choose to insult me, at least do so using proper grammar. Your president can pursue whatever naming conventions he wishes, but I will continue to refer to the body of water as the Gulf of Mexico. When you choose to educate yourself on America's true history rather than just the whitewashed perspectives, then we can have a meaningful conversation. Until then, do not come to me with uninformed replies. Sister, my response was not uneducated at all. He is your president as well. It is very un-American to claim he is not. Ashton, we do not care about your liberal opinions. They only irritate us, so it would be best if you kept them to yourself. I love you, but I do not support your political views or religious beliefs, so it would be wiser for us to refrain from commenting. Me, I will continue to express my views whether you approve or not. When the Republicans shouted that Biden was not their president for the last 4 years, that was acceptable to you. It appears the pot is calling the kettle black, doesn't it? I love you too, but your opinions can be quite harmful. Sister, I never claimed that Biden wasn't my president. How dare you assume that? And yes, when the Republicans insisted Biden wasn't our president, I found that un-American. I have called him an idiot and mentioned that he seems to be losing his mind, as I assume most of America would agree. That is why he dropped out of the race, because even his own party recognized the truth. You can share whatever you wish on your page, just as Mom is doing. If I come across a post that I disagree with, guess what I do? There is no point in trying to change any of our minds, so why stir up trouble? My views represent the majority, dear. Me, good for you. Are you expecting a gold star? You can express whatever you want on my posts, but it will not affect the validity of my statements. In my opinion, Trump is also experiencing a mental decline. Nothing escalated until you all chose to respond with name-calling. You seem to believe that you can sway my thoughts, but I express my opinions because I want to plain and simple. You could have stayed silent, but you didn't, and your feelings got hurt. Your beliefs may be popular, but the majority of the population of Israel wanted to crucify Jesus, and the majority of Germans supported the execution of Jews in the 1940s. Just because your opinions are widespread does not make them correct. Sister, nope, I never attempted to change your mind. I was just irritated when you directed that comment to Stan. He called you stupid because you labeled what Mom posted as stupid. Bless your heart, I'll pray for you. You didn't hurt my feelings at all. It takes a lot to affect me emotionally. However, you did make me angry. Again, my point still stands. I did not call Mom's post stupid. I merely critiqued what the president did. From there, Stan thought it would be appropriate to resort to name-calling. If he intends to insult me, he should at least use proper grammar. You can bless my heart all you wish, but being condescending while also invoking religion does not reflect Christian principles. If you want to pray for me, do so without telling me. Just act like a genuinely caring Christian and refrain from throwing insults immediately afterward. Sister, I only referred to you as a keyboard warrior. I just call things as I see them. We are all sinners, which means I can be a Christian while still labeling you a keyboard warrior. I do pray for you all the time without mentioning it because I care for you. You are still name-calling, regardless. I pointed that out because it is not indicative of love. Regardless, my point remains, do not invoke Christianity in a condescending manner. Sister, oh my gosh, just stop. You keep responding, you can also stop. Sister, you're such a brat. That is your opinion, a misguided one, but you are entitled to it nonetheless. Around this point in the conversation, my mother either deleted the post or made it private. My sister later texted me privately, attempting to intimidate and undermine me further, and I eventually sank to a lower level in response. Sister, your behavior isn't cute, and it doesn't do anything but make you look bad. There are many names I want to call you right now, but the only one I will use is disrespectful. Your vocal opinions on our beliefs only encourage everyone to distance themselves from you. If we wanted your opinion, we would seek it out. If you call me uneducated one more time, I will demonstrate just how uneducated I can be. You are not the one to be calling someone else uneducated, Ashton. How much education do you really have? You can act mean and tough all you want. Call me whatever you wish, I could not care less. Be angry if you want, but if I wanted your opinion, I would have asked for it, and I didn't. I think you need to take a step back and calm down. If standing firm in my beliefs makes me appear poorly, then the same can be said of you. As for my education, I have my General Educational Development Certificate and have participated in dual enrollment during my junior year of high school, meaning I took both college and high school classes simultaneously. I completed a semester each of Spanish and United States history, in addition to multiple advanced placement courses, AP Biology, AP United States History, AP Human Geography, also at the college level, alongside a brilliant professor in biology and human anatomy and physiology, who has also contributed to one of the largest publishing companies globally. I may be a dropout, but I am quite an educated one. I was reading at the college level while in elementary school. With that said, I believe I have a better grasp of history than you do. If you choose to push me away, that is your decision, but keep in mind you will lose a sister that you only recently reconnected with. Is that truly what you want? Sister, at this point I really do not care. You are pushing me away, Ashton, just like you tend to do with most people in your life. Your understanding of history is skewed. You would prefer to erase it than actually learn from it. I know your highly educated parents do not share your views. I don't care whom she has written for, it has nothing to do with you. From what I can see, your stubborn behavior has alienated them too. Nobody wants to listen to your left-wing rhetoric. I have repeatedly asked you to keep quiet, especially since you know we disagree with your views, but you refuse. Therefore, I'm done with your nonsense and will not respond to anything else from you. And all that, education, hasn't really taken you far in life, has it? Yes, it has kept me from becoming pregnant as a teenager or falling into substance abuse, but that's crossing a line, isn't it? Regarding my relationship with my adoptive family, you have no idea what is happening. In fact, we just attended a concert by Toby Mac last night. Ultimately, the individuals who genuinely care about me and choose to be around me remain in my life. I have a substantial support system of people who love me and share my beliefs. You questioned my education, and since you could not find a fault there, you resorted to lower blows. However, when I do the same, it becomes an issue. I don't want to erase history. I want to present all perspectives, not just the whitewashed narrative. Learning from it involves understanding how harmful ideologies have negatively affected us. I do not expect you to respond, but if you choose to, just do not. Please, keep your opinions to yourself as you expect me to do. Have a pleasant evening. Sister, yes, you were raised better than I was, and I know how you perceive all of us. However, I have been independent since I was 18 and have worked incredibly hard to improve my situation. I lived with Mom for 4 months when my niece was a baby, but I persevered and saved until I could afford my own place rather than relying on others. You are insufferable, and I've had enough. I genuinely cannot stand you and have felt this way since you left other sisters. You come across as an entitled, spoiled brat. Me, yet we live in a different reality today. I am proud of the hard work you have put in. You assume I view you all in a certain light, but you are mistaken. If you truly cannot tolerate me, then why act as if you can? The choices you made led us to this moment. Please remember that. Out of everyone in this family, I was the only child who needed to be removed from your collective care. I had to part ways with the other sisters because her son decided to assault me, but I know you are not prepared to discuss that either. Call me whatever you wish, but recognize that partly, your decisions have led me to my current situation. Also, whatever happened to your promise not to respond? Again, have a good evening. After this exchange, she did not text me again and subsequently blocked me on Facebook. Part of me feels remorse for some of the things I expressed, but the level of disrespect I often encounter from my biological family truly gets under my skin. In summary, my biological mother made a Facebook post about the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico, and I commented that the renaming was foolish. My biological mother's husband then called me stupid using incorrect grammar, which I pointed out. My sister joined the discussion and attempted to insult me, which led me to call her uneducated. Later, she texted me privately to continue the same pattern of behavior, and I responded in kind. Ultimately, she blocked me on Facebook. Story 2. What I thought was a healthy, equal relationship turned into cheating, lying, betrayal, and self-sabotage. TL Dr. F 24, M 21. I am 21, she is 24, and we were together for 2.2 years. Before I proceed, I want to clarify that I am not perfect. No one is flawless, which is why I believe I acted the way I did. However, I cannot comprehend her actions. I will provide as many details as possible because I seek an outsider's perspective, and I genuinely do not know what to do, so sharing this feels right. I woke up on a Sunday morning around 9:30. My girlfriend at the time was still asleep, and I had never been one to go through her phone. I had a gut feeling that there was something I needed to see, so I did. I found messages where she admitted to sleeping with someone else, indicating it was her dream and discussing how long she was with him. She mentioned that she liked him a lot, but that he did not want to be with her. She also expressed her desire to break up with me to be with him, who was a co-worker of hers at the time. I took photos of what I discovered, and I left the house, got into my car, cried, and called my mother to tell her what I found. When I returned inside, she was awake, and I began to cry. I looked her in the face and asked her to confess to what she had done, but she lied directly to me. As I started reading the screenshots, she attempted to grab my phone and began to panic, realizing she had been caught. After that, I left to go to my friend's house. Just for context leading up to this revelation, in hindsight, it seems she was numbing herself before and after she cheated on me. She had been staying out with co-workers after work to smoke marijuana, drink, and go to the casino activities she had never engaged in before. The details become hazy after that, due to the emotional turmoil I was experiencing and the alcohol I consumed, as the unfathomable had become a stark reality, worse than I could have ever envisioned. Later that evening, I returned to retrieve my belongings and asked her for space while I gathered my things from the house we shared. This was her parents' home, which they allowed us to stay in for free. I tried to maintain it in a clean and tidy manner, but her efforts were minimal. However, when I arrived, she was present, and I don't recall much because I had been drinking, and the emotional roller coaster made my memory blurry. I only remember gathering my items and expressing how much I loved her and how I felt used, but the exact words escape me. I left the city and drove to my mother's house, a distance of about 45 minutes away, feeling hurt, crying, and completely shattered. I put my things in her house and collapsed after pacing around so much. The next morning is somewhat unclear. I don't recall much from the second day, except that I worked and informed my family and friends about what had transpired. I think I took half the day off to discuss everything with my mother, as we share a strong bond. We talked while I tried to process why this had happened. In the evening, I went out and got absolutely drunk due to my intense pain, but I won't elaborate on that. The following day, I did a bit of work. For context, I work online, and then paced back and forth in the living room. I paced so much that I developed blisters on my feet. I remember attempting to sleep but struggled with the racing thoughts in my head. I believe that up to that point, I managed only 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and that night marked the moment when the effects of alcohol began to wear off. I needed more to feel sane and to sleep, so I drank some beer. That night, I slept on the floor because I couldn't even bring myself to sleep on the couch. It felt tainted because she had been there. I found myself in a terrible mental state for just 4 days, and I couldn't stop communicating with her, expressing how she exploited my kindness for a trip across the country and for the expenses of food and rent I covered. I had done far more for her than she ever did for me, and the love I felt for her had made me blind. We were on the verge of moving, and I had even arranged a job for her to work alongside me because she was unhappy at her previous job, which she acknowledged. Only a day before she cheated on me, I put down a deposit on a house we planned to move into, not a shared deposit, but one I worked hard for. She joined me in visiting the house and counted the money again to ensure it was accurate. The next day, while I was sleeping, she went out and slept with someone else, returning late after sneaking into bed beside me. After my 4 days of anguish, I had a realization that perhaps she acted this way because she sensed how much better her life was about to get and engaged in self-sabotage. Leading up to our move, I was demonstrating to her how we could attain success, and she saw me filled with motivation, happiness, and excitement about leaving our current place for a more beautiful location. This girl had endured a traumatic childhood filled with severe abuse, having been told throughout her life that she was worthless and unworthy of achieving anything meaningful. These issues stemmed from her father, and her parents' relationship was equally distressing. She experienced sexual abuse as a child and remembered being touched without consent, as well as having been raped by someone prior to our meeting. I became aware of this during our relationship when she suggested therapy, but we rarely discussed it beyond that. I believed she fantasized about this guy she mentioned liking so much in her messages, feeling the need to end our relationship to pursue him, despite him not wanting her back, indicating she needed to free herself from this thought. Prior to all these events, she had mentioned having a crush on someone at her job, and I dismissed it, never thinking it was significant. Yet she would randomly plant ideas in my head, such as, "Would you consider having an open relationship?" Or, "We are not limited to just sleeping with one another since we are so young." This occurred after she cheated on me, and she kept saying these things all week. When I researched self-sabotage and its effects in relationships, it resonated with me. It made sense, given her actions and behavior, like avoiding spending time together, not being intimate with me for a month, poor communication, and engaging in control and manipulation. I began to see her not just as a partner, but as a deeply hurt individual with a traumatic past, and my perspective on everything shifted. The next morning, I shared my insights with her. When I brought it up, her tone changed completely, and it felt as though she grasped the concept, unlike before, when she appeared annoyed by my need for her to disclose the truth because I sensed more was hidden. The conversation took a different turn, and I encouraged her to seek therapy, emphasizing that she must want to initiate change for herself. I had her express sentiments like, "I want to be happy because I deserve to love myself and have self-respect." I felt her self-respect was nearly non-existent since she had a fetish involving humiliation, which seemed to stem from her past experiences, and the things she enjoyed that made her feel sad and lonely. When I addressed this topic, she opened up further and shared more details about her activities during the week leading up to her infidelity. She claimed she was going out with her friends, but gave little information, saying she would return by midnight. She failed to contact me and showed up at 11 a.m. the next day, having been dropped off by someone whose identity remains a mystery to me. She initially told me she had gone to a nightclub and later admitted the man she slept with was there, and she attempted to kiss him, but he rejected her. 4 days after she slept with him, we became intimate, and she later confessed that it was unprotected and that she performed oral sex on him. Fast forward to yesterday, I had to return to the city to retrieve my sports bike, which I left at a friend's place. I had acquired a new phone after smashing my previous one in anger 2 days into this chaotic situation, and I texted her to inform her of my presence. I felt the need to confess certain things to her, and I implied she should confess to me in return. My mindset shifted as I continued to care for her. I wanted her to seek help. Eventually, we met at a park and sat in her car while I revealed things I had concealed from her. I confessed my infidelity, indicating it was not just once but more, although I initially lied and said it was merely once. I also apologized, admitting that was another lie. It was actually twice but involved a one-night stand with individuals I didn't even know. I also disclosed my hidden cocaine use, as she had suspected I was using drugs. Most significantly, I shared the greatest secret I had kept my herpes status, which I had never disclosed to her, knowing she was negative. I acknowledge I am not flawless, and I believe the reason I never informed her was that I wanted to be perfect for her, which is unattainable in this world. Following my confessions, we began asking each other questions, realizing there was nothing to lose by being honest since we were already apart. She admitted to seeing her ex when we were together, but it was only after I confessed my infidelity that she reluctantly revealed she had seen him twice. She recounted that the first time he assaulted her and ejaculated inside her, while the second time was to inform him that she would never be with him again, aiming to close that door. The details are incredibly distressing, but we both deceived each other. I can accept responsibility, but she seems unable to do so. She justifies her actions with other partners based on my initial dishonesty. We eventually ended up booking a hotel room and had sex that night in a very emotional encounter. While in the hotel room, she allowed me to go through her phone, where I discovered nude photos of her that I had never seen. I inquired whether she had sent them to the man she liked, and she denied it, but then grew quiet. It turned out her ex had requested nude photos in exchange for a plane ticket out of the country. Another revelation I came across was a note in her phone stating, "Can we sleep together?" a message she had sent to the man with whom she cheated. His response was, "I was just going to stay here, but we can go to my place if you prefer." She initiated all of it and placed herself in that situation, regardless of how terrible it was. There is much more I am leaving out, along with some minor details, but this encompasses the majority of the situation. The timeline is somewhat scattered, making it difficult to recall certain painful moments. I want to heal and consider being back with her, but these are grave issues, and all I want is for her to be mentally stable and to stop inflicting pain upon herself, which she does not seem to manage. Do you believe it is feasible to mend this and possibly reconcile? Do you think this was an act of self-sabotage, or does it reflect a deeper character flaw? Does this justify our actions equally? I concealed an STD from her. Is this something that can be rectified? Story 3. Were my friends and I being hunted? I am not an excellent storyteller, but I felt compelled to share my experience to determine if I am merely imagining things, or if perhaps I should have never gone camping in the first place. My friends and I had a brief 4-day weekend, and we all impulsively decided to go camping. We were all extremely bored, and 4 out of the 7 of us had never been camping before. So we figured, why not? Let's head to the woods, indulge in some reckless behavior, and pretend to be adventure seekers. I had previously gone camping with 2 of the 7 members of our group in the southeastern region of North Carolina. We opted to return to the same location as the previous week because the owners were quite relaxed about our activities on the campground, as long as we cleaned up afterward and didn't act foolishly. So we agreed to go. We drove down, met up with the rest of our friends, and decided to chat with the owner, who was conveniently nearby. My buddy had arrived earlier and spoke with the campground owner for a couple of hours while the rest of us gathered last-minute supplies. The owner was a laid-back guy, a Marine Corps veteran who served in Vietnam as a forward observer. He showed my friend his 1911 pistol from the war, which had quite a story behind it. He took an RPG round nearby that injured his legs and crawled to a crater, hiding until he encountered a Vietnamese soldier wielding an AK-47 with a bayonet. The soldier hesitated, prompting him to draw his 1911 and shoot the man right between the eyes. It was a wild story. He inquired whether we had brought a boat since the campground featured a boat ramp, and many visitors mostly came for duck hunting or to navigate the river. Unfortunately, we didn't have a boat this time, so we explained that our plan was to hike along the trail into the woods and camp, wherever we could find a suitable spot for the night. We also checked with him about bringing our firearms because the main reason for our trip was to mess around in the woods with our guns and shoot at trees and squirrels. We arranged our camping gear, and shortly thereafter, we saw a no trespassing sign near the trail. We asked the owner about it, and he casually responded that the landowners were not present at the moment and wouldn't mind our presence. In hindsight, that should have been our first warning to steer clear, but being young and reckless, we carried on anyway. He also mentioned a nice spot not far from the ramp. He told us to follow the trail until we reached the creek, then make a right where we would encounter a large tree that would be hard to miss. His wife, I believe, escorted one of my friends in their golf cart to check out the area and gather some information. Upon their return, my friend excitedly shared all the details about how to reach the spot, and we set off. Fast forward a few hours, we established our campsite complete with a cozy campfire, tents, tarp shelters, and a general disarray in the woods. We decided to fire off a few rounds from my AR-15 and my friend's 12-gauge shotgun into some trees, thinking nothing of it. We cooked steaks over the fire and felt that the night was progressing well. Around 9:20 p.m., my friend headed to his tent when, out of nowhere, the rest of us noticed a small orange light around 100-150 yards away. Simultaneously, my friend spotted a figure about 6 feet tall, wearing a brown jacket, moving among the trees. He began to panic, asking if we had all seen the same thing, but none of us had. We began illuminating the area in the same direction he had indicated and focused our flashlights and headlamps on the light. I shouted a tentative, "Hey," into the darkness, reminiscent of those Lego commercials, hoping for a response but received nothing in return. Another friend switched his flashlight to strobe mode, attempting to elicit a signal from whatever was out there. Once again, nothing happened, and the light remained still. Our confusion escalated, and chills ran down our spines. A few minutes later, we heard multiple gunshots in the distance. We quickly took cover behind some trees, praying we wouldn't get shot. Thankfully, we didn't, as the shots continued for about a minute or two. My friend with the shotgun stood waiting for something to unfold, while another friend grabbed his axe, and we contemplated stepping outside to see what was happening. However, my friend returned with a gut feeling that we needed to leave. Though initially skeptical, we soon felt the same overwhelming sensation and unanimously decided to make our exit. We hastily packed our gear, urinated on the fire to extinguish it, and resolved to only use red lenses from that point forward in an effort to lessen our visibility. In the midst of this, we began to see multiple orange and white lights and heard the sounds of engines approaching. We quickly extinguished our lights and dropped to the ground. My rifle was beside me, but foolishly, my friends and I had discharged all my 5.6 rounds, likely the reason for the approaching vehicles. As we lay there, we observed 2 or 3 vehicles approximately 20-30 yards away. My heart raced, and silence enveloped us. Only the sound of the vehicles intruded on the stillness. They were shining their lights in various directions, and I feared we would be caught since the remnants of our fire still glowed in the fire pit. In the anxiety of potentially facing another round of scrutiny, we determined it was best to abandon the rest of our belongings and retrace our steps back to safety. We were entirely focused on remaining undetected, moving in single file through the dark, eerie woods, no more than 5 meters apart, frequently checking to ensure no one was lost. My friend with the red lens was in the lead. The one with the shotgun followed closely behind, while the remaining 5 of us trailed closely in their wake. What should have been a 5-minute hike turned into a 20-minute ordeal on our return. The pitch blackness, dense foliage, rocks, and unexpected dips in the ground made silent movement nearly impossible. The journey back felt never-ending as we stayed in a heightened state of alert, avoiding capture by whoever or whatever was pursuing us. We arrived at a T-junction in the trail by the creek, and confusion ensued as we debated whether to go straight toward the beach or back along the trail. Ultimately, whether due to uncertainty or fear of detection, we opted to go straight to the beach, taking the longer route. We gathered at the tree line along the beach to ensure everyone was accounted for, and one of my friends glanced back toward our campsite and noticed there was a vehicle where our campsite had been. Thankfully, we could see our cars clearly. We sprinted to our vehicles and sped away from the area. We decided to stay at my friend's girlfriend's house for the night and returned in the morning to collect our remaining belongings, only to discover our tent was ruined, and the cooler that had once held steaks, drinks, and seasonings was completely empty. In retrospect, I believed it was a poor decision to return, but at least I am here and alive to recount this absurd tale. In summary, my friends and I ventured camping in the woods, and we almost fell victim to whoever was shooting at us, simply because I wanted to learn how to bump fire an AR-15.